Hi everybody, welcome back to the Claremont Classic Garage. Today we're going to try and get as many of the finishing touches on our 1948 8N as possible completed. I don't know if we can fit the entire completion of the project in one video, but we'll get started and see how it works out. First job is to install the toolbox. It's a reproduction one, but they fit okay. And in it, I put the extension for the trailer harness, the wiring diagram for a trailer harness, the sleeve from the fan belt, so when it breaks one day, we remember what belt it is. And that's that. Eventually, I'll also print out a copy of the 8N owner's manual and put that in there, just because it should be in there. This is the right place for the toolbox on an 8N. On a lot of 8Ns, you'll find them, they've been removed and bolted to the fender because folks, that's their preference. But that's where it belongs, so that's where I put it. Next thing we're going to put on is something else I've been tripping over out here in the shop. I threw on this old trailer mover. It's been kicking around here forever. Might as well put it on here. At least it makes it look like it does something. Now we're going to put on the hood, and I'm going to try doing it a little differently than I normally do it. I normally put it all together, put the dog legs on it, and then lift it up with the crane and lower it down. Today, just to satisfy my curiosity, I'm going to find out if I can just put the top panel of the hood on and then attach the dog legs later. I'm just not quite sure if I can get at the bolts, but there seems to be lots of room under here, so hey, let's give it a go, right? So the easiest way to do this is with the steering wheel off, get the throttle opened up, and I just put a little bit of tape around there to protect the dash, and run a 3/8 fine tap through here before you start to clean up those threads. This thing goes on. You get this at any of the places that sell Ford tractor restoration parts. I'm not 100% sure what the purpose of it is. I think it just keeps a bunch of junk from going down there and plugging up this area. It kind of seals the hole in the hood around the rad neck. So now I'll go ahead. I'll lift that thing up and see if I could drop it over here without killing myself. Well, so far so good. Let's see where these bolt holes are. Yeah, there's one there. That's easy to get at. And there's the other one there, also easy to get at. So yes, we can do this. Fantastic. So we'll get the hood sides on next. Now, I'm just going to put everything on and just kind of leave all the fasteners loose until I've got them all in. And then we'll go around one by one and tighten them up. That went pretty well. We got the hood sides on, got all the hardware in and the nuts started on them. Now you can see here how the grill goes on an 8N. These two bolts in the bottom hold it loosely so it pivots. And then when you put it up, these clips here operate these pins that go into a hole there. That way you can roll the grill down and clean the chaff and stuff out of the radiator. Pretty smart design. That's good. We got all our fasteners tightened up, so now the hood is on for keeps. Next thing, we're going to install the funnel for the air cleaner. It just goes in there like that. It fits nicely into the top of the air cleaner there, and then there's 4 screws that hold it onto the hood side. Now we're going to find out 100% sure if we got this piece welded in the right place. Looks pretty good. Last thing we have to put on is the little vent for the air intake, but I forgot to paint it. So while it dries, we'll get the headlights hooked up and make sure they work. And there's our air intake vent installed. Now we'll go ahead and put on the steering wheel. One thing we were missing from this was a pair of running boards. Thankfully, our friend Nick from the Real Guy Garage came through with a pair for us so we could get these things cleaned up and painted red and put them on. Now we're going to get our back wheel fixed up here. We've got one good wheel with a good tire on it, if you remember, but The other side, the tire was really bad. And rather than bust that down and put another tire on it, I've got a bare rim here, and I have a good tire and a good tube. So we'll just fix up this rim and put it all together. So as bad as this thing looks, it's really not all that bad. These original rims, we call them the hat rims because of the way they're constructed, rather than the loop rims that you see on later tractors and Fergusons. But they do rot. This one here, it's got a hole there, you can see, and there's another punky spot there we have to fix. And we have to repair what we call the band. So I'll show you how we do that. First thing we're going to do is get the air chisel out and get all this old crap cleaned off. So we've got something to work with. Oh, we got all of that crap off and knocked a bunch of the scale off in the process. Now the next step, we're going to get this thing, which is a needle scaler, and it cleans up any leftover loose scale that's on there. So we'll go all the way around the rim with that, and then we'll see about getting our actual welding repairs done. Here's a little piece of metal that I found. I'm going to make a patch for this out. So first thing we have to do is use our little cutoff wheel and cut out where we're going to weld it in. We've got this cut back, and you can see we've cut it back into good solid metal that we can weld to. Now I've made a patch. You can see I've put the arc on it, so when it gets in there, it should fit pretty nicely, and we can butt weld that around and then dress down the weld. That's the theory anyway. So right now I'm going to cut this off. Then we have to chamfer all of this stuff so we can get a good bead of weld in it all the way around. We've got our patch butt welded in. Now I'll dress down the weld with the angle grinder, and we'll see what it looks like when we're done. Well, that turned out pretty well. Now we'll do the same job on this one. We've got this piece fitted, and I've gone ahead and tacked it in. So I'm just going to go around now and weld it in, and then we'll grind it down. And I did, when I was working it, I found another little punky spot over to the side here, but I should be able to just fill that in with weld, and it'll be just fine. Our piece is welded in. Now we'll take it over and grind it down. That's that all tidied up. Now what I'm going to do is get my hammers and dollies and stuff and go around and fix these few little spots on the lip, and then we'll go ahead and put a new band on it. And we'll talk about options for the band as well. Now we're going to deal with the band. There's several ways you can deal with this depending on the situation. Sometimes you'll find one that's just, it's not bad, but it's just got a couple of holes in it here and there. And that is okay, but those rusty holes will cut the tube over time. So in situations like that, sometimes I will admit I have just gone around a couple of rounds of Gorilla Tape, and I've never had a problem. All you're trying to do is keep the tube from going down in there and getting really distorted and possibly blowing. I've often wondered if you had a modern radial rated tube. They're about twice as thick as the old school tubes. You might not need this in there at all. It might be just fine. And I've also had discussions with myself and with Deb's dad. He's kind of on the same page as me that it's possible that you may be able to just fill this void with spray foam and shave it off and put some Gorilla Tape around in it, and it'd be just fine. The only real long-term problem I could see with that is I don't know if the spray foam would soak up water and rot the rim faster, worse. I'm not sure. But what we're going to do today is just put some pieces of metal on it. So you just go around, you grind here, you grind there, and you just start working your way around, and we will replace the band. So there's our new band put in. You don't really have to weld it to there. So long as it's welded to here, that's fine. The inner tube just can't put enough stress on it to push it in or nothing like that. It's fine just like that. So now we're going to let this thing cool off. Then we're going to go ahead and clean it all up. Then we got to bring the other wheel in and get the centers out of them and start prepping everything so we can paint it. We've got our rear wheels in the shop here. What we got to do is get the centers out of them. This one here is the good tire. This is the left one. So this one is just, we're going to separate it, get everything cleaned up and painted, put it back together, put it on. And this one, remember we've got a bad tire on here, so we fixed up that rim over there. So all we need from this one is the center. And then this one's still up and holding air and everything. We'll just roll it into the, off to the side there. And eventually we'll have, you know, just a beater tractor that it's got a cracked one on the other side too. We'll match it up. It'll get used for something. Well, that was our first kind of heavy work we've done with our new to us Ultra Pro 1/2-inch impact gun that we got at the auction the other week. And you can see it got all 6 nuts off this one, but it only got 2 off of this one. So now we're going to get out the old Nitro Cat and see if it can take any of those other 4 off. Well, that wasn't too bad. In the end, the Nitro Cat wouldn't touch those nuts. We had to get the hot wrench to coax them to come off. Now, the centers came right out. We have to get the wheel bolts out of this rim. I usually just use a air chisel with a pointy bit and push them straight out. Sometimes if they're a little stubborn, just a little bit of heat right in that area there, and out they come. So let's see if we can get them out. Well, that went pretty well. They all just came right out. Deb did a fantastic job, as usual, painting our wheels. This one was pretty straightforward. We just put it on. The front is off the stand, so she's on 3 wheels now. But the 4th one we've got to build up. We've got a wheel, a tube, and a tire. And after my last 8N video, some of you encouraged me to try doing the tires with the wheel bolted to the tractor rather than the wheel on the ground. So I'm going to attempt that now. And if it doesn't go my way, I'll pull it back off and do it on the ground like I normally do. Okay, so you do this in 3 steps. First you get the back bead on, then you get tube in, then you get the front bead on. I guess 4 steps. Then you cross your fingers and blow it up is the 4th step. First thing we got to make sure, number 1, if it's you know, an old tire, or for that matter, any tire, even a brand new one, get your shop vac and vacuum it out, because there could be a little piece of gravel or something in there, anything, and it'll poke a hole in your tube. Then the next thing you want to do is just feel around with your hand and make sure there's nothing stuck. Sometimes they'll have a nail stuck in them or whatever, and you do all that work, and as soon as you blow it up, it punctures the tube. And then the last thing you want to check is you want to go around the bead here. Sometimes if this tire came off an old rotten rim, there'll be big gobs of rusty metal. They kind of get vulcanized to the edge of the tire, and that'll make it really hard for it to climb up the bead on the wheel when you go to seat it. With that all done, we can go ahead and put it on. We also want to make sure our rim is as clean as can be, and if you have the time, put a nice coat of paint on it. It'll help give the tire something slick to slide over. Now, I'm going to use bead soap. This is what they have at service stations or tire joints. And we're just going to slather up this bead, the tire bead with it. Now let's see how this goes. Like I said, this is my first time doing it with the wheel on tractor. Oh, and very important on tractor tires, you got to make sure you're putting it on the right way. This one's going on the right way. If you just look at the top of it, the arrows, the treads point forward. And even better, somewhere on here there'll be an arrow that says rotation, and it'll tell you what way it's going. I don't see it on this one. It's kind of dark right here. But anyway, we've got this going the right way. then you just get your bars and start working it. So now we're going to fish the tube through. We use one of these, a valve stem puller, to fish it up through. And once we've got it through, we put the retaining nut on the outside of it, and that'll keep our tube in place. I won't bore you with the details of doing that. It's a lot of going around like this. Once you've got the tube in, you get the tire hung up over the top of the rim, and you just start working your way around with your tire irons until you've got it on. Well, when you get to this part, you just kind of go like that with a hammer, and she goes the rest of the way. I'm not sure I like doing it on the tractor. I might next time try doing it on the floor again. But anyway, it's on. Now we have to get the jam nut on our valve stem, get the core back in it, and fill it with air. Now we'll go ahead and blow it up and hope the tire seats onto the rim. Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. I've had them where I've had to put them out, wait until it's like 90 degrees outside, and put them out in the sun, and then they'll seat. But, hey, we're going to find out. So there we go. It's seated. Now we're going to blow it up to about 15 psi. That's usually what I run in these. What you might find is that you blow your tractor tire up to 15 psi and you come out the next day and it looks flat. Don't worry about that. Sometimes when you're inflating it, the actual air that was inside there gets caught between the tube and the tire, and it takes quite a while for it to bleed out, and that the tire will go half flat. You just blow it back up. Sometimes you got to do it a couple of times, and then it's okay. Now we're going to go ahead and torque the back wheels. On my other 8N, I torqued them to 120 and everything seemed to be okay. On this one, it felt a little squishy. Now, I don't know if that's because there's, paint on the back of the wheel. So what I'm doing, I'm just going to go around, torque them all to 100, and then we'll have another go at them once I know I at least got this much out of them. Last thing we're going to do is torque up the axle nut. You torque these to 450 foot-pounds, which we've done with the help of this long bar here. And then this is the lock ring. So all the way around the nut, in the center of each flat, there's a hole. And then in the axle, there's 2 slots. So whichever one is closest to lining up, you turn the axle nut just that tiny bit more than 450 to get to where it lines up. And you can see here, there's the little hole. And it lines up perfectly with that slot in the axle. So you just... you get it started in there, like so, and then you just pop it on with a screwdriver. So there, you can see how it goes in. The little tail goes down in there, and the rest of it snaps into there's a concentric groove around the nut. And as part of your maintenance, just to make sure, because these things will loosen up over time, when you're changing your oil or something, just pop the clips out, get your big bar, and make sure those darn nuts are tight. Because if they get loose and the hub gets loose on the spline and it starts working, it wears out the hub, then the axle seals start leaking and mess up your brakes, and it all goes to hell pretty quickly. There we go. We're just going to go around now and give this thing a good grease job, because it probably hasn't seen a grease gun in 50 years. All right, now is the moment of truth. I'm going to see if I can start this thing up and drive it out. So we're going to open the fuel. Oh, I've never had that open yet. Let's see what happens. Here comes the fuel. There you are. It'll go up into the top and then it'll filter through the screen and down into the carburetor. Don't see any leaks. That's good. Now we're going to turn the battery on. And see what happens. Okay. Ignition. Ah, looks good. Here is some throttle, some choke. Almost. I ran it up the hill out the back in third gear and it bogged down a little bit, so I'll show you what you do to fix that. This is your main power screw here, and when you go up a hill, if you see black smoke coming out of it, close that screw a little bit. If the engine bogs down, open that screw up a little bit. And it bogged down, so I backed the screw out a little bit, which lets a little more fuel through the main jet, and now it goes up the hill fine. Okay, we've got it on the turning plates, and now we're going to set our toe. We're looking for a 16th to an 8th toe in. And right now it's towed in. You can see 1.5 inches. That's a lot. So we're going to take some of that back. So we're getting there. It's towed in 3/8 of an inch now. We got to still get a little bit more of that out, but we're gaining on it. There we go. It's towed in 1/16 of an inch. I'm going to leave it right there. Then once we're done, we tighten the clamps on the drag links so our setting stays. There you have it, folks. We've made it to the end of this project. This tractor is ready to be put to work. If you remember back from when we did the engine, it is a little bit loosey-goosey inside. So she's got a little blow-by. And it does puff a tiny bit of blue smoke out the exhaust, but you know what? It's fine. I just couldn't justify the expense of completely overhauling the engine for what we're going to be doing with this thing around here. Start it up once in a while, move a trailer, run the chipper for a few minutes. That's all this thing is ever going to do. So it's more than good enough. It starts right up. It runs nice. It idles smooth. So I'm happy with it. The oil thing, I'm not that worried about. Anyway, I want to thank you all for tuning in. I hope you'll come back again. We'll have another project soon enough. And until then, this is Kevin checking out from the Claremont Classic Garage. So long for now.